Good evening and welcome. From contributing to the nation's GDP to providing thousands of employment opportunities, the agriculture industry is a significant contributor to Fiji's economy. A successful agricultural sector means greater food security, increased national income, and an improved standard of living. Tonight, we take a much-needed update on this sector from the Honourable Minister for Agriculture, Dr. Mahendra Reddy. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start off the show with your tour of the North that finished this week, Friday. And recently, in fact, you've been going around Fiji and having these consultation sessions in rural and maritime areas. And we'd like to get an update on some of the issues that your ministry, in your capacity as the minister, you've been able to receive from people on the ground.
Zad, thank you for inviting me to discuss this particular sector, which is very, very critical for the economy. Agriculture matters a lot, both to the economy and to the other sectors of the economy, as well as the people. The rural and maritime community, most of them, apart from a small proportion depending on the tourism sector, most of them, their livelihood is sourced out of agriculture sector. This tour that I made to the Northern Division, you may have noted that I have dealt with the three portfolios that I hold: agriculture, maritime and rural and maritime development, waterways and environment. So in this tour, I have addressed the issues arising out of these three ministries that I hold. What are the critical issues that rural and maritime community often raise when we go and meet them? I normally spend 2 days in office, Monday, Tuesday, to deal with policy matters. In the next 3 days, I normally plan to spend on the field to see how the execution is taking place, and also to listen to people and see what their feedback is, whether it's captured in policy making and whether the execution, the service delivery, is done as per the expectation. So this tour of Northern Division, where I basically was to deal with service delivery with respect to agriculture ministry, rural and maritime development, and waterways and environment.
And if we consider, like for example, in the agricultural sector, right, or the rural and maritime development sector, what are some of the livelihood issues that some of the, for example, farmers are facing?
It's linked, rural and maritime and agriculture. The key issues are, one is how do we get them moving into agriculture. The agriculture strategy that we are proposing. We are proposing that, look, we need to really, if you want to exploit the full potential of agriculture, we need to get into commercial agriculture, commercial farming. And what do I mean by commercial agriculture? This is what I'm trying to convince the farmers, that commercial agriculture is where, one, we target the market. Whatever we grow, whatever we produce is targeted for the market. Of course, in the rural and maritime community, they might apportion a little bit for their own household use or community use. But we're saying that will not sustain. That will not sustain the quest for growth in agriculture. At the moment, we are contributing to about 6% of the GDP. I'm saying, if we follow the strategy that we are now pushing forward to, in real terms, in terms of actual output, we can double output in 3 years' time, agriculture output. But in nominal terms, it will be much, much higher, because the value, the price of agriculture commodities are the unit price much, much higher now than 10 years ago. For example, you can compare Yangona prices. Same thing with other root crops and ginger that we are really promoting big time, and livestock as well. You look at lamb prices. So in nominal terms, it could be 5-6 times higher output with just a doubling of agricultural output. So the primary push that we are doing now is to trying to convince farmers to get into commercial farming. So as I said, what is commercial farming? You target the market. Number two, you go for creating surplus. You need to have profit. And number three is that when you create this surplus, we are telling the farmers that, one, you will have to reinvest every year. That's how private sector does. Every year they'll reinvest, and that's how the private sector expands, the economy expands, and the country grows. So we're trying to convince the farmers that, look, we cannot really pour in government resources to stimulate growth, production, and supply by giving subsidies and grants. That's not the way. The strategy is different here now.
At some point in time, the farmers have to take charge of their own.
We give them the initial leverage. We give them the initial leverage with respect to public infrastructure, for example, access of farm roads, public drainage, initial land clearing and land preparation. After that, we say that, look, we will provide the market to you, and I'm going to talk about the market in a second, but we're saying that, look, after that, we are not here to bankroll you. We're not a financial institution. After that, with the initial development you have done, that's enough for us to take it to Fiji Development Bank, which has been established primarily for lending to the agriculture sector. So we're saying we can't be bankrolling. I mean, there is this misconception amongst farmers. They'll say that what kind of assistance government will give? No, but look, we will give once. After that, we will have to go and assist other farmers, because the strategy here is that I want to increase the base of the agriculture sector. In simple terms, if I have 1,000 farmers now, I want 10,000 farmers. So I need to increase the base, and then also I want these farmers to grow commercially, expand, and increase productivity. So this is the way in which I can get agricultural output and do justice to the country. In national interest, the agriculture sector has to grow in national interest. That's where the potential is. That's the sector we're stable. That's the sector which is in our control.
In the news, this is something that you've in fact chosen to focus on, the way that the agricultural sector is undervalued. And we'll talk about the 5-year national development strategy in a while. But before that, if we can just go back to the past and think about the ways that the agricultural sector could have been commercialized in the past. Talk to us about some of the barriers that were there before that stopped the commercialization of the agricultural sector, for example, 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Why now? Why not before?
Two things that requires a change in the drive. One is that the initial small farm and farmer-led agriculture system served well then. Now that is no longer relevant, and I'm going to explain to you in a second why that's no longer relevant, why that cannot serve the new drive to grow agriculture. And the second one is we had put the cart before the horse. We were trying to stimulate agriculture growth, production, and supply by giving subsidies and grants. I'm saying no, that cannot provide a sustainable growth in the agriculture sector. I'm saying we get the market to the farmers, get the market signals to stimulate growth and supply and production and supply. So that's the two differences that I see, is that the old model of a small farmer-led agriculture system is not relevant now, because we don't have the support system to run that particular farm. For example, why are the sugarcane farms now, farmers are saying, we cannot manage it, we don't have harvesters, we want to go into mechanization? Because at that time, you had the family size to support the farm. But now we don't have it, so now we need to go into mechanization. And that's what I'm saying, is that we need to go commercial, and mechanization is a very important, critical part of the agriculture system.
Right. You've mentioned some very important things that we'd like to touch on when we come back from our next break. Stay with us. So, Minister, when we left off in the last segment, we were talking about the livelihoods of farmers and how and the strategies that the ministry is looking into ways of commercializing the agricultural sector. And you mentioned that you'll be introducing or looking to bring forward signals for farmers to respond to, right, in the market. Tell us a bit more about that. For ordinary farmers who may not understand, economics, tell us what this means.
Ziad, when you talk to any farmer who is getting into from semi-subsistence to commercial farming, meaning he's going to produce in large scale, what is the single most concern or worry of the farmer? And the farmer will tell you, all of them will tell you, that whether they will be able to sell their product. If we are able to remove that worry, if we take over that worry, that concern, the farmer will be able to grow to his maximum potential. What we have said, that we have given a list of crops that we want the farmer to grow, whom we have got the market now. In 12 months' time, I'll revise that list. The list will be longer. At the moment I'm saying, you grow and produce any amount of paddy rice paddy, we will buy all. Immaterial of the variety, we will buy all. At the moment we are only producing 15% of the total rice that we consume. So we're saying to them, we will help you in land preparation. You grow, you produce, we will provide you with the harvester because they don't have the labor now to harvest manually. So if you're growing, 30 acres of rice crop, under 30 acres, you just cannot harvest manually. They don't have the labor in the rural area. So we're saying, we'll provide you with the harvester, we will wait, we will buy all. Now some farmers in the central division said to me, Minister, we can't dry the rice. Weather is not good. So how do we dry it? So I spoke to Fiji Rice Limited. They're willing to buy wet rice, meaning that they will have the dry at their mill. So we are taking the market to them, saying we will buy from the farm gate rice, turuka, cassava, dalo, yam, pulses, bongo chili, rosella leaf. These are the crops that are in demand locally and in the export market. We're saying we will buy any amount. You don't worry about it. I was in Northern Division last week. I went to Wainikoro, where we just have established a office for agro-marketing authority, and we are picking up cassava. Never before this had happened. They were worried that from Wainikoro, they will have to carry or hire a twin cab and take the produce to Lambasa market, and that too, it's not guaranteed at what price they will be able to dispose of the produce. We're now saying, you don't have to worry. We will pick it up from Wainikoro at our agro-marketing office near agriculture office. So so we just established that. We've just started picking cassava from there from the last 3 weeks. When I was there last week, they said, Minister, you're buying cassava at 60 cents a kilo, but you're buying only the larger cassava, and they're not taking the smaller ones. So I said, okay, we'll take the smaller ones, but at a differential price. We'll take it, let's say 40 cents a kilo, 35 cents a kilo. Are you okay? They said, Minister, we're very happy with that. So look, we are able to buy all, but the price will be based on the quality of the produce and other dimensions or attributes of that particular commodity. So in this way, we will be formally launching that particular office, and that time we will be giving out a longer list of produce that will pick it up from there. For example, in Northern Division, we are promoting Yangona, cassava, dalo, yam, pulses, because we don't have issue of perishability. Unlike in Western Division, we are going for fresh produce as well. We're picking up, market is closer there. So the strategy is, we will take the market to the farmer and say, you don't have to worry about how you're going to sell your produce. We will pick it up at a guaranteed price, which will be revised every now and then.
Okay. And what methods do you employ to determine what this guaranteed price is, and how often will it be subject to change?
It depends on the type of crop. For example, the cassava price, we have given them a 6 monthly price. At the moment, it's 60 cents. Now, I was in Sydney and Brisbane a couple of weeks ago, attending to speak at the Australia-Fiji Business Council meeting. I met a outlet there, owner of an outlet, who is importing cassava. He used to import cassava from Fiji, but he couldn't get the volume. He's importing cassava fries from Costa Rica. He is signed up with Woolworths, and cassava has got a very low GI compared to potato, French fries. So cassava, he's getting this cassava fries from Costa Rica in that volume. We can't supply that volume at the moment. And he's saying, if you can do that, but you'll have to set up a plant, because you have to make the fries here, blast freeze it, package it, send it to Australia. Now, remember, he's entered to Woolworth market, which means the market there is entire Australians. That's the volume, and he's thinking of signing up a contract with McDonald's. So the thing is that, what is the volume? And that's what I'm working now. over the next 3-year period is to get the volume up so that we can meet the demand requirement for this market out there.
So what you're saying is for farmers to produce and let the government worry about market access, right?
We will provide market for the range of, we were working we've got our own statutory body, Agro-Marketing Authority. The primary objective of establishing that is to provide market to the farmers. Now, there are areas where there are other private sector operators who are picking up. But they're not going to go into the eastern division, in the maritime, the islands, because it's not economical for them. We will do it for them. We will do it for them, but maybe the price will be slightly lower because we have to pick up the cost. Yeah. So we will, at the moment, we're picking up all the produce from the Narivatu, which never used to happen before. They used to hire 20 cab and come down to Tabua, Rekereki market. The last season of potato, we picked up all the potatoes, at a reasonable price, $1.50 a kilo. We picked up all the potatoes. So we were very happy because they did not have to spend money to transport their produce down to Tabua Bar market.
Right. When we come back from break, we'll discuss other issues with the agricultural industry. Stay with us. So among other things that we were discussing in the last segment, I think we rounded off the discussion on the way that the Ministry of Agriculture plans to commercialize the industry. In your tours and in your face-to-face discussions with people on the ground at the grassroots level, could you tell us about some other issues that matter to farmers in terms of leveraging their production?
There are 3 or 4 more issues that come up. 2 critical ones is farm and access roads and drainage. With respect to drainage, we when the Ministry of Waterways was announced in, I think, 2017 by Honorable Minister of Economy, Honorable Syed Qayyum, the primary reason was to protect the communities. In fact, if I can recall, the underlying theme of the budget was to protect and secure our rural maritime communities. But given the effect of climate change, our rural communities were really affected. Not only the agriculture, the farms, but also the villages and settlement. And never before government had any allocation to undertake village drainage. Government did have some allocation to deal with public drainage, which used to come before under the Land and Water Resource Management called LORM, which was part of Agriculture Ministry. So the Minister of Economy established this dedicated ministry, Ministry of Waterways, and later on it became Ministry of Waterways and Environment, where new allocations were provided for. Never before we had allocation for rural farmland drainage, in-field, meaning in a farmer's field, let's say a 20-acre, government was not doing drainage there. So there was a new allocation to undertake drainage work for farmers. So we have done massive amount of drainage last 2 years, and it's continuing this year, to deal with drainage issues, to make the land suitable for agriculture. A lot of farmers have now brought in land which was there so not suitable. Now they brought the land under agriculture production. Then we have also, because to provide to get agriculture, we need to also secure the villages, their livelihood. So there was a new allocation that Minister for Economy announced, rural residential drainage allocation. We have done a lot of villages drainage work. A lot of villages have benefited. The work is continuing because never before this was done. So there's a backlog. It will take another 4 or 5 years to do 1 round of village drainage. Now, in addition to that, we are now about to make a major announcement with respect to undertaking a provision of farm and rural community access road, because it doesn't come under FRE. There was a small allocation with Ministry of Rural and Maritime Development, which was never sufficient to deal with the demand for rural farm access road and community access road. We'll be making an announcement because we've got a new model we're looking at. The new model is this. We will announce the list of farm roads. At the moment, I've got close to 300 farm roads and community access roads that we need to do. The community signs off the river which is now blocked or choked because of excessive gravel, and it is flooding in the nearby. So the community will give a consent letter that we can use gravel from the particular river to clear up the waterway, so that the waterway water can get discharged. We will use the same gravel, use our machinery to do farm road and community access road. This will save millions of dollars, millions of dollars. And I tell you, this way, one whole year we will have to do this if we're able to do meet open. From last 15 years we have got requests. I've seen the list of requests with the Rural and Maritime Development Ministry. For the last 15 years communities have raised the request to do this community access road or farm road, which we haven't done. That itself will be a major boost to agriculture development, also the morale of the rural community, our community in the Maritime Division.
Right. I understand the announcement is yet to be made, but could you perhaps discuss some areas of focus that you're already looking at, some projects that you've already identified?
In Reki, in Wainikoro, I was there when we were on Friday when we were commissioning, doing the groundbreaking ceremony for the new government station in Wainikoro. One of the number one request was access road. They were said it was about 5 kilometers of farm road and community access road that they want us to do. And I said, okay, what you need to do is to give us a consent. Is there a river where it's kind of clogged up with gravel and it is affecting your community? They said yes. Are you going to give us a consent to extract that? So slightly along a process where we'll have to do a environmental impact screening. So, so once we get the consent, then our engineers will go and do the scoping, fill up a EIA screening application, which go to the environment department. They will inspect and tell us how we need to do that extraction of gravel without affecting the environment and the river bank. We don't want to destabilize the river bank. So, Bua, Sanganga, Wainikoro, Western Division, here in Tailebu, the number of places where we'll have to do farm access road. New land under coming into agriculture, one of the requirement is farm road. So we are now doing a comprehensive list. The initial list that we have, close to about 400 farm roads that in community access road, we are now getting the EIA screening done.
So let's move on to one of the issues that, in fact, you mentioned in your portfolio, in your role as the Minister for Rural and Maritime Development as well. You're well aware that one of the key areas of focus for Fiji in its national strategic plan is for building climate change resilience, and especially when it comes to building climate change resilient infrastructure. For example, coastal seabeds in rural and maritime areas. Talk to us about the recent development or the plans that are in place to develop these areas or to build more climate change resilient infrastructure.
Ziad, you must have heard of Honorable Prime Minister and also recently Minister of Economy speaking at, I think probably at one of the World Bank forums. 45 communities, 45 villages needs to be relocated because they're affected by saltwater intrusion. Now, this is the initial list. There are other communities who will find their name of the village on that list as well very soon. We need to protect these communities. Some of them with protection, they could continue to live in that particular location. Some probably might be delaying if we do the protection there. And some, as you know, as this 45, they just need to move, to be relocated. This is the level of threat climate change is posing to our rural and coastal communities. We have done a lot of coastal protection work. Just now we completed in Lamini village in Tavuni about 600 meters of coastal protection work with a value of $0.9 million. There are other places like Namoli village in Lotoka. We are about to finish $642,000 of work. We started earlier this year. We have just completed Nandaro village in Tailebu, $395,000 work. A lot of places last year we did about 12 places coastal protection work. In addition to this, we are also doing riverbank protection work. All of these are structural bank protection work, meaning engineering design. But we need to provide a more sustainable, cheaper, nature-based solution to this problem arising out of nature. We have secured US $200,000 from government of Korea South Korea, to undertake riverbank stabilization through vetiver grass technology. We recruited a project manager to undertake that work. In that project, we will be establishing 3 nurseries for vetiver in Western Division, in Central and Northern Division. Also, we will be doing a number of villages who are alongside the riverbank, which are being threatened. We are planting vetiver. Now, this is a unique model where we are using the communities, where we're paying the communities who will utilize the vetiver grass there, and we do the design. They will plant it, they'll look after it. We pay them about $12 a meter. So it's 3 rows of vetiver that we plant. So if we do 500 meters, so we pay them 500 times $12. The community takes ownership of it, community gets involved, community also earns income out of it. They feel good about it.
We'll come back from our next break and continue the discussion on building climate change resilient infrastructure in rural and maritime areas. Stay with us. So among the other issues that we were discussing in terms of climate change resilience, you mentioned that a lot of coastal and maritime areas are affected by saltwater intrusion, which affects their ability to produce crops as well. How do you plan on sort of solving these issues for these areas?
We've got in places where there are floodgates, we are maintaining a lot of floodgates. The primary objective of the floodgate is when there is rainfall upstream, when we need to get the water out, so these floodgates will open and the water will pass out to the sea. When there is high tide, then these floodgates will automatically close. So in that way, the salt water won't come in. But due to sea level rise, there's intrusion of salt water, so we need to do coastal protection. We need to do bunding in these places where salt water is kind of coming in. So now we also said to farmers that they need to also look at how they need to adjust their farming system, because some areas it's just impossible to stop the saltwater intrusion. So they'll have to probably move upland and do their farming. Apart from this, we are also maintaining irrigation system, which also some areas are affected by salt water. So we've got a separate budget that we are using to maintain this irrigation system. Particularly, the irrigation system is only in the Central Division, canals in Nabua, and Northern Division, there's about 4 places.
I mean, for example, in the Ministry of Waterways and Environment, which is another portfolio that you handle, water management, how important is this an issue for you?
Actually, you know, this is something we have had a lot of discussions within the Ministry of Waterways and Environment. If you look at all our waterways, major waterways, we nicely collect all these waterways upstream and take it right down to the sea. And for agriculture, this is a very important source of water for crop growth and raising crop productivity. 95% of our agriculture that we produce, it's produced out of rainfed system. We basically don't have irrigation. So we have got a plan where we wanting to see how we could, from the waterways when it comes downstream, how we can, at every point, let's say, a kilometer, every kilometer down, we can divert this water to inland. And one is we take it to a retention pond where we let the retention pond hold water. So 2 things will happen there. One is it will recharge the groundwater table, and secondly, this retention pond can then, the water can be utilized by farmers for agriculture purpose. We haven't done this yet. This will require a lot of money. We're looking at external funding. But what we have done last year is we have established, not in too many places due to funding constraint, water retention pond where it'll harvest rainwater, and it'll keep there, and farmers can use it for livestock drinking as well as for irrigation of agriculture. This year we have developed a new model, which is a very unique model, which is a dual purpose provision of water to communities where there's no water, no reticulation water, for both agriculture, irrigation, as well as for household consumption. We just completed two setups in 2 places in Nandi, which we want to commission. where we have developed a 10 by 10 meter pond, water pond. We have dug up 10 by 10 meter, about 1 to 1.5 meter deep, where there's a water source. There's already a spring source. So it's filled up. 1 meter beside that 10 by 10 meter pond, we've got a well where we put vertically 2 culverts. So this water from the pond seeps into the well. The pond water can be utilized for agriculture, irrigation, where this water then we pump it to a $20,000 liter tank up on the higher ground. From there, the water then is passed on to households through gravity-fed system. So in one spot, site 1, we have got 16 households who will be utilizing water from this for consumption as well as for agriculture from the pond. At site 2, we've got 8 households. We spent about $20,000 for this, and the community will do their own piping from the tank, the reservoir tank. So it's a unique model, and we want to then establish that throughout Fiji, which is very cheap actually.
So in terms of scale, when you say throughout Fiji, is it a Fiji-wide rollout, or how do we?
No, I mean it depends on the funding availability. But this is for small communities. So 20 users, 15 users, 12 users, households who can get both drinking and as well as water for agriculture purpose. So we're looking at probably doing another 20, by end of March, subject to funding.
So since we're on the topic of water, especially in the agricultural sector, one of the areas in the agricultural sector that needs a lot of fresh water for production is the livestock area. Recently, in fact, we're not talking about water here, but give us an update on the livestock industry, especially with the outbreak of brucellosis and the development within the dairy industry itself.
Within the livestock sector, the 3 livestock that we are concentrating at the moment because of the economic status of it, beef cattle, dairy cattle, and sheep. At the moment, we are producing 60% of beef domestically. There's only a handful of commercial beef farms we have in Fiji. We're looking at growing that so that we can at least 100% self-sufficient, and we want to also explore the export market. Beef is the most expensive meat in China. Now, but there's a problem with breed as well as brucellosis and TB. It took Australia 40 years to eradicate their beef cattle scheme from tuberculosis and brucellosis. We have started 2 years ago. We have just tested the farms in Vitilebu. We haven't tested the farms in Vanvalebu. We have to test it and eradicate. It'll take time. Now, once we have done that, simultaneously, also we are stuck with the issue of this beef cattle that we have. It's very low yield beef cattle. We are bringing in high yield beef cattle, Senapol breed, which we want to give it to farmers. But we can't give it to them now, even though we are not ready to give it to them. It'll be ready by next year. Because if we give it to them now, they'll get infected with TB and brucellosis. So we need to clean the farms, certify the farms, then only we can give it to them. So we can, by getting the new breeds, we can increase the carcass yield by 3 times. Then we have to increase the farm size. For that, we'll have to provide fencing material, so that we can get farmers raising beef commercially. We'll be making announcement by December or January on re-establishing the Yangara farm. We want to commission that. We have started work. For the last 3 months, we're working to get back the Yellow scheme that was for 15 years. It has been closed. So that's on beef cattle. On dairy, similarly, we got a new breed, brown Swiss, which has milk yield of about 25 liters per day per cow in Australia, whereas in here, our breed here gives us 5 liters per cow per day. So again, we'll have to wait till we clean up our farms, then give this breed to the farmers. Yeah. Then we're saying that we also need to do intensive dairy farming, where we have got the dairy cattle inside, about 200 to 250 heads, while we've got pasture grown and feed grown corn outside. That we're looking at a potential investor.
Okay. If we can put a pin in that for now, we'll continue our discussion on the livestock industry, especially the dairy industry, when we come back from our next break in the final segment. Stay with us. So if we carry on our discussion where we left off in the last segment on the dairy sector, this is a sector that's always very controversial. In the past few years, it's been a subject of politics as well. There's always debates as to market prices and the welfare of dairy farmers, the future of the dairy industry as well. So talk to us about the current issues that exist with the dairy industry.
Well, one is the TB and brucellosis. Farmers are concerned that let's say you have a head of about 20, and when we test, we find that it has TB and brucellosis. We basically take it away, and they lose the entire head. So we test it out. So they are concerned about it, and that's why the milk production has gone down, because we have been culling animals, that are infected with TB and brucellosis. And we will assist them. We will assist them later on when we have cleaned up. We will provide them with this new imported breed that we have. This imported breed, brown for dairy brown Swiss. What we do, we can't import live animals to immediately give it to them. That's because some of the diseases that we have in New Zealand and Australia, we don't have it here. So basically, it's a complete no-no by biosecurity. So what we have done is we are importing fertilized embryo. So the egg is fertilized there, and the embryo brought in test tube and inserted in a cow here. So the original, they'll give birth to the original breed of brown Swiss and Singapore in case of beef cattle. So at the moment, by next year, it'll be ready to then start mating or giving us egg that we can do artificial insemination as well. So that's one issue. And once we have that, then we have got a new high-yielding breed, both for dairy and beef. Second issue that dairy farmers are concerned about is pasture. This year itself, we have provided a new, very high-yielding pasture, which is cut and carry pasture, not the pasture that will grow in the paddock. We provide them; they'll grow separately. It's called junkao grass. They grow separately, and then they cut and carry and feed it to the animals. This is very high in protein, very high in protein. Number two is it drought tolerant because it is deep-rooted pasture. Number three, it will last for 40, 50 years. What you do is every 3 months you cut it, feed it to the animal. Every 3 months you cut it and feed it to the animal. Number four, you can prepare silage. You harvest it, shred it, put it in airtight bag, you can keep it for 3 months. So we are now preparing for the drought. So there are drought happen. Two things that we need to address when drought happens. One is pasture, two is water. So we're preparing for pasture, and we're also saying that for all commercial farms, we will try to assist you in providing a water source during the drought period. So we are able to deal with it too. The other issue that we're dealing with dairy and beef cattle is pricing. Earlier this year, you would have noted a major increase in price of fresh milk that the farmers sell. Now, that actually brought in, expanded the existing farmers in Western Division, very neat and clean there. We don't have any farmer cooperative, etc. Farmers have boosted farmers to increase their head size. Now you can see the ideology we have is to use market signal to boost production rather than trying to boost production by giving them subsidies or grants. That's not sustainable. So with an increase in price, we have seen a major increase in milk production in the Western Division. The Southern Central Division, they are quite behind because they are suffering from, they had the commercial farm from long, are infected by TB and brucellosis. The last thing that we are now wanting to do is, by July next year, is to come up with a new set of farms who had 2 or 3 or 4 cows or a smaller number of beef cattle, to give them fencing material so that they can establish paddocks. That is one of the most important requirements for transition of a smallholder farmer to a medium to large farm holding. So that is something that we will provide.
If we talk about pricing, I'm interested in knowing how the gate-taking price is fixed. Since that price increase earlier this year, a lot of farmers have claimed that even when the prices have gone up, that isn't truly reflective of what they are getting.
No, look, farmers have in their mind about this notion about incremental pricing, meaning, 2 years ago this was the price, now inflation has gone up, things of goods and services have gone up, so milk price should go up. That's not how businesses operate. Businesses operate based on the unit cost of production. We want to know what is the unit cost of production. With the increase in price, farmers have started to increase their head size. Now, after a certain number of additional cows, the marginal cost is zero, meaning that you don't incur any major additional cost. So marginal operational cost is pretty much zero for adding, let's say, 10 more cows in the paddock. So, which means within that short period, you are able to increase your farm net revenue because your cost structure is same. You are now producing more milk. So it's the thinking of some people is that because of inflation outside, their milk price should increase because their household income is affected. Now we should not confuse between household income status and farm income and profitability status. So any pricing, it should be based on the unit cost scenario.
Okay. Since we're coming towards the end of our segment, a very important issue that we wanted to raise here is natural disaster preparedness. After Cyclone Winston, one of the worst hit sectors was the agricultural sector, and it drove the prices of food up. So in terms of natural disaster preparedness, since we are in the beginning of our cyclone season in Fiji, is there any work that the Agriculture Ministry is doing to combat?
Yeah, mostly with Ministry of Rural and Waterways. There are two types of natural disaster. One is where we don't know where the impact will be. For example, cyclones. We don't know where the impact of the cyclone would be. Cyclone could be in the Western Division, in the Eastern Division, Northern Division. The other type of natural disaster is one where we know where the impact would be. For example, flooding. We know what are the flood-prone areas. So what I said to our waterways team is that go and look at the last 3 years, the floods. Where were the floods happening? Where were the floods happening? Then see what is the contributing factor to this flooding. Is it drainage system? Is it excessive water that comes from the upstream? Or is it that we have a drainage, the rivers and waterways are blocked? So in this regard, so while we are doing the drainage examination of flood-prone areas, we are also looking at the waterways which are filled with gravel and sand material, which needs to be dredged. So this is an emergency situation. Now, by law, if you declare a particular river under emergency, then we have the right to go and immediately get it dredged without any royalties to be paid. So we are drawing up a list of rivers that we will declare emergency, and we will then call for or express our interest from private operators who would want to come and do dredging of that, like we just recently did for Waindamadamu River, which was the major contributing factor to flooding in the Tailevu area. So that river is about 12 kilometers. 2.7 kilometers will be done by a private operator who will then keep the dredge material. The remaining we will do it using extension arm excavator. So we will be now very soon, we will finalizing the list, declaring emergency for these rivers, which we will then call for experiments from members of the public to assist us in dredging them.
Minister, unfortunately, that's all we have time for on the show, but we thank you for taking your valuable time out to come and join us today for this much needed update on the three.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me here.
And that's all we have for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you next week.